Welcome back to the ABCs of RPGs, where we're teaching you the basics of Call of Cthulhu. I'm Spencer Reese, and in this video, we're covering combat. The most exciting part in most tabletop RPGs is especially deadly in Call of Cthulhu. Because of this, remember that running away is always a valid option. But if there's no other choice, here's how combat works in Call of Cthulhu. First, you determine the order of attack by ranking everyone's dex from highest to lowest. On any draw, the higher combat skill goes first. Ready firearms or casting an instantaneous spell grants plus 50 dex for the initiative. You can find your dex score under your original characteristics that you determined at the beginning. Let's say you have the highest dex and go first. You have 3 options in combat: perform a melee attack or firearm attack, perform a fighting maneuver, or just run away. Melee uses the fighting skills such as fighting brawl or fighting small club, while a firearm attack uses your firearm handgun or firearm rifle shotgun skill. A round of combat is generally noted as long enough for everyone to take a significant action, from 6 seconds all the way to a few minutes, so keep that in mind when you take your action. Let's say you've decided to make a melee attack using a small club because you have a trained 60% in that skill. Before you roll the dice, choose who you're attacking, and they will choose their reaction. Call of Cthulhu makes combat more intense by allowing characters the choice of 2 options when being attacked. When you are the target of an attack, you choose either to dodge or fight back. When you attempt to dodge the attack, you roll your dodge skill to attempt to avoid all damage. You calculate your dodge by taking half your dex. In order for your attacker to succeed, they must roll 1 level higher of success than you. When you attempt to fight back against an attack, you use your own fighting skill to attempt to not only negate the attack, but also deal damage back to the opponent who initiated the attack. This is very risky to do because in order to succeed, you must roll 1 level higher success than your opponent. So back to our scenario. You've chosen the fighting small club skill to attack, and your opponent has chosen to fight back using his fighting small knife skill. Both of you roll percentile dice, and you're in luck. You've rolled a 28, meaning you have a hard success, and your opponent, who had a 40 in his fighting small knife skill, rolled a 22. Even though he rolled lower than you, his success level is only a regular success. In order for your opponent to have won against your roll and deal damage back, he would have needed an extreme success on his 40 skill, which means he needed to roll an 8 or lower. If you're thinking right now, well, how do I even know if I have a small club or not? Generally in Call of Cthulhu, if it's reasonable for your character to have something on them, then they do. There are rules for purchasing items based on your credit rating, but these are not necessary for normal play. Now, let's say you want to do something other than hit a monster or shoot your gun. This is called a fighting maneuver in Call of Cthulhu. A fighting maneuver can be disarming your opponent, knocking them down, or even pushing them off a cliff. The possibilities are endless, but there are rules to succeed. A fighting maneuver is treated the same way as a regular fighting attack, using the fighting brawl skill, and your opponent may dodge or fight back as usual. Once you've decided what outcome you're trying for, and you've chosen your opponent, next you have to compare your builds. For each point bigger the target is, add a penalty die to the attacker's roll. If the build difference is 3 or greater, you can't do a fighting maneuver against them. You also get no bonus if the attacker's build is larger than the defender. Your target then declares if they are dodging or fighting back, and then makes an opposed roll against you, the attacker. If you are successful, then the desired outcome occurs. Sometimes, a fighting maneuver can put the target at an ongoing disadvantage, such as being pinned or held. This means that the target may incur either a penalty or a bonus die on subsequent attacks. In order to escape from a pin, hold, or grapple, the target needs to make their own fighting maneuver on a subsequent round. Now, let's talk about guns. Very powerful weapons with an extra set of rules in Call of Cthulhu. Just like with a normal combat round, if you choose to fire your gun, you roll against your firearm skill appropriate to your gun type. However, your opponent this time is limited in their reactions. When you are the target of a firearm attack, you cannot dodge or fight back against them. Instead, you may dive for cover. The target, you, rolls against their dodge skill. If they succeed, then rolls to hit the target are made with a penalty die. However, when you dive for cover, you forfeit your next attack, whether or not you succeeded in your dodge roll. If you are shooting, you may fire as many times as your gun allows. For each bullet, you will have to make a separate firearms roll, with each roll after the first having a penalty die attached. Reloading can be done in 2 ways. You can take a turn to reload 2 rounds into your gun, or you can reload 1 round and fire it immediately with a penalty die added to the roll. There are actually quite a few more rules that grant bonus or penalty dice, so I'll list those now. Here are some firearm bonus dice conditions. Aiming. Taking a round to aim, takes a turn to set up. You'll lose advantage if you take damage or move, but aiming grants you 1 bonus die. Point blank. This condition happens if the shooter is in 1/5 of their dex in feet of the target. Add a bonus die. Large target. If the target has a build size of 4 or more, you get a bonus die to your roll. And of course, here are some firearm penalty dice conditions. Cover. If the target is at least half covered, then add a penalty die to the roll. Fast moving target. If the target is moving at full speed, movement of 8+, then add a penalty die. Reloading firearms. Reload 1 round into the chamber and then shoot. Add a penalty die. Handguns making multiple shots, firing 2 or 3 shots in a round. Add 1 penalty die to each shot. Firing into melee, add a penalty die. Also, a fumble hits an ally. Small target. If the target has a build size of -2 or less, add a penalty die. Dive for cover. If the target makes a successful dodge roll, then add a penalty die. There are also separate rules for automatic firearms, but they are complicated and slow down the game. Please make sure to read them fully and that your table agrees to use these rules if you want to incorporate them into your game. Now let's say you make your fighting attack and get an extreme success. Hooray! You get damage bonuses depending on the weapon. Blunt weapons get max weapon damage plus max damage bonus. Damage bonus is from your build on the table on page 8 of book 2 of the starter set, or page 33 in the Keeper's Handbook. Penetrating weapons get max weapon damage plus max damage bonus from your build, plus 1 extra weapon damage roll. Keep in mind, this is only when you initiate the attack and not when fighting back. There are also rules for if you're outnumbered. Once a character has fought back or dodged in the present combat round, all subsequent melee attacks against them in the same round are made with 1 bonus die. This does not apply to attacks made using firearms, but does apply to enemies with multiple melee attacks. If you bring a knife or any other weapon to a gunfight, please make sure to look up your weapon statistics on page 401 of the Keeper's Handbook, or use the generic weapon stats on page 19 of book 2 in the starter set. Next up, we're covering chases, which might not be included in combat for other games, but in Call of Cthulhu, chases get their own rules which turn up tension for play. Keep on learning, we'll see you in the next video.